Whispering sands move softly across a quiet plain, and the air carries the scent of dust and distance. The night is still, the stars above shimmer faintly, and the world feels both ancient and alive. The documentary begins not with noise or revelation, but with stillness, the kind of silence that feels like listening to something vast and invisible. The narrator speaks in a calm, slow tone, letting the sound of the wind fill the spaces between words. Every handful of earth holds a story, they say. Every buried stone, every forgotten tool, is a whisper from a time before memory. This is not just the story of archaeology. It is the story of mystery itself, of humankind's quiet obsession with what came before and what still lies hidden. The scene unfolds like a dream. The listener is guided through deserts, forests, and frozen tundra, landscapes where history rests beneath the surface. The narrator reminds us that the ground beneath our feet is not inert. It moves, breathes, and conceals. Civilizations rise and fall, and the earth, patient and impartial, covers their remains with gentle layers of time. We walk unknowingly over the ruins of lost empires, ancient villages, forgotten sanctuaries. Somewhere below, an object sleeps, an artifact that once belonged to a life, a moment, a purpose. And when it finally resurfaces, whether by accident or intention, it disrupts everything we think we know about the past. In this gentle introduction, time is not linear. It is a circle or perhaps a spiral, looping, folding, repeating. The narrator draws attention to this paradox. History, they say, is not what happened. It is what we remember and what refuses to be forgotten. The calm rhythm of speech invites the listener to drift in a thought, to imagine themselves as part of that continuum. We are the inheritors of mysteries we did not create, the curators of riddles we cannot yet solve. The tone is both poetic and grounded, as if guiding a dreamer to the edge of understanding without breaking their trance. Gradually, the focus shifts from the vastness of the world to the intimacy of discovery. The brush of a hand removes a layer of dust from an ancient relic. A hammer strikes rock and reveals something impossible, a shape that should not exist, a tool out of time. The light and dark contrast grows stronger here. The comfort of scientific certainty against the thrill of the unexplained. Archaeology, we are reminded, is not just about answers. It is about questions that deepen with every discovery. The narrator's voice lowers to a whisper. Every unearthed object is a voice, echoing from the dark. And sometimes what it says changes everything. The section closes as it began, in stillness. The desert night deepens. The stars continue their patient watch, and the music fades to a faint hum that feels like breathing. The narrator pauses before the next revelation. Tonight, they say softly, we will travel through time and mystery, from the deepest ice to the warmest sands, from the known to the impossible. These are the most mysterious archaeological finds ever unearthed. Listen closely. The earth is speaking. The final words linger like a spell, a doorway gently opening. The transition is seamless, leading the listener from tranquil curiosity into the first great enigma. A simple tool found in stone that should not exist, waiting to be rediscovered in the next chapter. In the quiet town of London, Texas, during the heat of the 1930s, something small and unassuming was pulled from the earth. A discovery so strange that it would echo through decades of debate. A hammer, partly encased in rock, was found by a couple walking along a hillside. At first glance, it looked ordinary, the kind of tool you might find in any old workshop. But the rock that held it told a different story. It was ancient, millions of years old according to geological analysis. How could something made by human hands be locked inside stone that predated humanity itself? The narrator's voice moves softly, deliberate, and curious, allowing the weight of the mystery to settle in the listener's mind. Sometimes, they say, the smallest object carries the loudest question. The hammer rests today in quiet display, its wooden handle half fossilized, its metal head unusually pure, far more so than modern tools. Some say the hammer was made from a process unknown to contemporary metallurgy. Others insist it is a hoax, a coincidence of nature's strange ability to mimic intention. Scientists have proposed that the rock might have formed around the hammer through mineralization over a much shorter time span, perhaps within centuries, not eons. Yet the visual impression remains haunting, a crafted tool sealed in stone, as though time itself had swallowed it whole. The listener can almost see it, the glint of metal beneath rough gray rock, a handprint frozen between epochs. The narrator invites the audience to drift into the contrast between explanation and wonder. There are moments, they whisper, when logic bends and we glimpse the shape of something older than understanding. The calm voice carries us through the conflicting interpretations. One theory suggests that ancient advanced civilizations may have existed, leaving behind traces that defy accepted history. Another insists that the hammer is simply a curiosity, a quirk of chemistry and patience. The truth, as with so many of archaeology's enigmas, rests somewhere between fact and imagination. The narrator reminds us that science thrives on questions, and mystery gives those questions meaning. The hammer becomes less a relic and more a mirror, reflecting our need to find coherence in the chaos of time. A slow soundscape fills the space, the rhythmic brushing of stone, the faint echo of wind across open plains. The narration drifts back to the 1930s, describing how the hammer was discovered protruding from a rock formation after a rainstorm had eroded the surrounding soil. The couple who found it could not have known they were igniting a debate that would span almost a century. When geologists later studied the piece, they found marine fossils embedded in the rock, remnants of an ancient seabed. Was this object a traveler through time, or merely an intruder in nature's deeper layers? The gentle tension of uncertainty becomes the heartbeat of the story. As the listener sinks deeper into the narrative, the hammer begins to take on a symbolic weight. It represents human hands reaching through the veil of time, the connection between creation and discovery. A hammer is a builder's tool, the narrator muses, but here it also becomes a message from someone or something who built before us. The tone remains calm, measured, resisting the urge to decide, allowing each possibility to exist in quiet balance. Facts are offered like stepping stones across a slow-moving river, and the current beneath them is wonder. The camera, in the listener's imagination, zooms in on the texture of the stone, the fossilized shell fragments surrounding the hammer's head. The narration describes how researchers debated its age, some estimating the rock formation at over 400 million years old, long before any human walked the earth. Others countered that such formations can occur through rapid concretion in specific conditions. Each argument sounds logical. Each leaves something unresolved. The mystery endures like a small flame in the dark, gentle but unwavering. The pacing slows again, almost meditative. The narrator speaks of how every discovery, real or misunderstood, reminds us that history is not fixed but fluid. Our timelines are stories we tell ourselves to feel secure in our place within the cosmos. Yet objects like this hammer remind us that the past might not be as linear as we imagine. Maybe time folds in ways we do not yet understand. Maybe, somewhere beneath layers of reason, there are echoes of a forgotten era. As the music softens into a faint hum, the narrator poses the final thought of this segment. Whether it was forged by ancient hands or trapped by accident, the London hammer remains a whisper from the stone, a reminder that not everything buried is meant to be explained. The final image lingers, the hammer resting in its rock cradle, half hidden, half revealed, like a thought the earth has not yet finished dreaming. Slowly, the sound of wind returns, guiding the listener onward. From a mystery of metal and stone to the broader question of how such anomalies fit into the vast, uncertain timeline of human history. The transition feels like an exhale, carrying us gently toward the next reflection. The bridge between known ages and the strange distortions of time yet to be explored. Time bends quietly, almost unnoticed, like the edge of a page curling in a warm breeze. The story moves forward, yet somehow it feels as though we are circling back. The narrator's voice returns, low and reflective, guiding the listener through a landscape not defined by geography, but by the invisible weight of time itself. What does it mean, the voice asks softly, when the past does not stay where we place it? The calm sound of wind and faint chimes weave through the background, evoking the feeling of standing between two mirrors, one reflecting the known, the other the unknown. This bridge section is not a pause, but a breath between discoveries, a space where we question the shape of history. The narrator begins to unravel the illusion of time as a straight line. Archaeology, they say, teaches us that our measurements of the past are both precise and fragile. We date objects, construct timelines, and assign beginnings and endings. Yet the Earth often disagrees. There are fossils that resemble modern tools, footprints that seem too ancient, stones carved with impossible precision. Each new find can tilt the balance between certainty and confusion. Perhaps, the narrator murmurs, our understanding of history is like sand, beautiful, shifting, impossible to hold. The tone remains steady, neither fearful nor excited, but deeply contemplative, drawing listeners into a slow meditation on the nature of discovery. The scene drifts seamlessly to the image of a diver, descending into the Aegean Sea, the world narrowing to the circle of a lantern's light. The voice describes the Antikythera mechanism waiting on the seabed, not yet named, not yet understood, just another piece of corroded metal hidden in coral and darkness. The transition is gentle, introducing the next great mystery while still lingering in philosophical reflection. When artifacts refuse to obey our calendars, the narrator says, they become something more than objects. They become messages. These messages remind us that time, for all its precision, is a living force, one that folds back on itself like waves upon a shore. A series of calm examples float through the narration. There's the petrified forest of Arizona, where wood has turned to stone over millennia, capturing the outline of a world that once breathed. There are ancient footprints found in Litoli, preserved in volcanic ash, revealing human presence far earlier than expected. And there is the mechanical relic off the Greek coast, a clockwork puzzle from a civilization that should not have known such precision. Each example becomes a verse in the same quiet poem. The past does not vanish. It simply changes form. The narrator's tone is slow, dreamlike, as though encouraging the listener to imagine themselves drifting across these layers, suspended between fact and imagination. The narrative reflects on human perception, how we seek order in chaos, and how anomalies often unsettle us. We want the past to make sense, the narrator whispers. We want it to behave, to follow rules. But mystery resists structure. It reminds us that knowledge is not a finish line, but a horizon. The soundscape deepens with a faint hum, perhaps the resonance of time itself. It feels as though centuries are speaking beneath the words, a chorus of lost civilizations murmuring from beneath soil and sea. The rhythm of a narration invites calm curiosity, not anxiety. It reassures the listener that uncertainty is not the enemy of understanding. It is its companion. Slowly, the narration gathers its threads, drawing meaning from the earlier mysteries, the hammer trapped in ancient stone, the fossils older than humanity, the relics that blur categories. The narrator describes time as a river with eddies and whirlpools, carrying fragments of the past into the present and sometimes tossing them forward into futures not yet imagined. Perhaps the reason we find what we should not, the voice muses, is because history does not unfold. It breathes. The calmness of the tone turns this thought into a lullaby of ideas, something both profound and soothing. The section closes with a subtle shift toward anticipation. The camera of imagination rises from the river of time, returning to the glimmer of the sea that holds the Antikythera mechanism in its depths. The narrator's voice becomes a little lighter, touched by curiosity. In the next breath of our journey, they say, we will follow the currents to an island in the Aegean, where a storm revealed a relic so intricate that it should not exist. A machine older than our machines. A clock that counted the heavens long before we could name the stars. The final sound is the echo of water and distant thunder, fading into quiet. The bridge has been crossed, from reflection into discovery, from a mystery of time itself to the ancient gears of the impossible. Beneath the blue depths of the Aegean Sea, where sunlight filters through the water like liquid glass, lies the wreck of an ancient ship that once carried treasures, statues, and something far more extraordinary. The year is 1901. Greek sponge divers, descending near the small island of Antikythera, stumble upon scattered bronze fragments encrusted with coral. At first, it seems like debris, another relic swallowed by time. But when those fragments are brought to the surface, dried, and studied, they reveal something impossible. Gears, precision-cut cogs, and delicate inscriptions. What they have found is not a statue, or a coin, or a vessel. It is a machine. A machine older than the very idea of machines. The narrator's voice is soft, deliberate, carrying both awe and serenity. From the silence of the sea, they say, came a whisper that changed our understanding of the ancient world. This object, known now as the Antikythera mechanism, was dated to more than 2,000 years ago, built, it seems, in the 1st or 2nd century BCE. Yet its complexity rivals the inner workings of a modern clock. Made of bronze and covered in inscriptions written in Greek, it contains at least 30 interlocking gears. When reconstructed, it reveals its purpose: to predict the movements of the sun, moon, and planets. It was an astronomical computer, precise, mechanical, beautiful, and its existence defied everything historians believed about the capabilities of the ancient world. The narration slows, inviting the listener to visualize the scene. The mechanism's corroded fragments laid out on a velvet cloth, each piece glinting faintly under lamplight. The sound of gentle ticking enters the background, not from the machine itself, but as a symbolic heartbeat, the rhythm of time turning in ways we cannot fully grasp. The narrator reflects, before the clock, before the telescope, before the printing press, there was this, a relic of minds so advanced, we can scarcely imagine their reach. The calmness of the tone transforms astonishment into reverence. This is not a story of shock, but of quiet respect, a recognition of the depth of human ingenuity buried under centuries of forgetting. Researchers began to reconstruct the mechanism, turning fragments into possibilities. X-ray imaging revealed layers of hidden gears and markings, tiny engravings describing eclipses, zodiac cycles, and lunar phases. Each discovery deepened the mystery. Who built this? How did they achieve such intricate craftsmanship with ancient tools? Some believed it was made by Greek astronomers following the legacy of Archimedes or Hipparchus. Others speculated that it came from a lost workshop of invention, a bridge between myth and science. The narrator allows each theory to drift like a current, never rushing toward certainty. Perhaps, the voice muses, the sea did not bury it by accident. Perhaps it was protecting it, keeping the secret until we were ready to listen. The soundscape shifts subtly, echoing underwater tones, muffled currents, distant whale calls, as if the listener, too, were diving through centuries. The narrator continues, describing how the mechanism's purpose was not just technical, but philosophical. It was designed to mirror the heavens, to turn the chaos of the stars into something predictable, almost divine. In its turning gears, the narrator whispers, the ancients found order, a clockwork reflection of creation itself. The idea that a civilization over 2,000 years ago built a functioning model of the cosmos challenges everything we assume about progress. The light of understanding, it seems, is not a straight beam, but a flicker, sometimes bright, sometimes forgotten, sometimes reborn. The narrator pauses, the tone gentle and meditative. When the divers first held it, they say they did not know they were touching the memory of the sky. Each rusted gear represents more than craftsmanship. It is a fragment of thought, of imagination made tangible. Even in its corroded silence, the Antikythera mechanism speaks of human curiosity, our eternal wish to understand the invisible patterns of the universe. The calm narrative rhythm carries the listener deeper into this realization. The mystery of the mechanism is not just how it was made, but why it was lost. How could such knowledge vanish, leaving no trace in the centuries that followed? Did it sink with the ship and the age that created it? Or was it one spark among many, extinguished by time's indifference? Soft music swells, echoing the movement of gears. The narrator's voice becomes reflective, poetic. Every tooth of bronze that turned within that mechanism once marked the dance of the planets. Each rotation told a story of light and shadow, order and wonder. And then, one day it stopped. There is no drama, no finality, only the quiet acceptance of how fragile human knowledge can be. Civilizations rise, invent, dream, and then they fade, leaving behind fragments that the earth or sea will someday reveal again. The narrator lets this truth linger like the afterimage of a distant star. Perhaps, they say, the mechanism is not just a relic. Perhaps it is a reminder that we have always looked upward, searching for meaning in motion. The final minute of this section drifts into silence, with the faint, rhythmic sound of the ocean's pulse. The narrator returns in a near whisper. Beneath the surface of knowledge lies the same mystery that stirs the waves above it. The Antikythera mechanism showed us that even the ancients touched the sky with their minds, that brilliance and mystery are not born from time, but from the human spirit itself. The music fades, leaving only the sound of water and the ticking echo of imagined gears. Slowly, the narrator invites the listener to move from sea to sand, from the hidden depths of invention to the monumental silence of stone. If the mechanism was a mind made metal, the voice concludes, then our next journey takes us to a wonder shaped from Earth itself, one that still stands beneath the same stars it once measured. The sound of the waves recedes, replaced by the soft hiss of desert wind. The transition is seamless, leading the listener toward the eternal silhouettes of the Great Pyramids waiting in the distance. The wind moves gently across the endless sands of Giza, carrying with it grains of time, soft, golden, ancient. In the distance, three immense silhouettes rise from the desert floor, their sharp edges glowing faintly in the dim light of dawn. They have stood there for thousands of years, unshaken by wind or war, by empire or erosion. The Great Pyramids of Egypt, monuments to both the known and the unknowable. The narrator's voice enters softly, with reverence rather than explanation. There are places, they whisper, where human hands touched eternity, and the pyramids are among them. The calm tone and faint echo of desert wind invite the listener into the vast quiet of one of humanity's oldest enigmas, a mystery made not of myth, but of stone. The scene unfolds slowly, like the rising of the sun over ancient limestone. The narrator guides us back in time to the reign of Pharaoh Khufu, around 4,500 years ago, when these colossal structures were conceived. Each stone, some weighing over 2 tons, was carved, transported, and placed with precision so exact that even today, blades of metal cannot slip between certain blocks. In the age before steel, before the wheel was perfected, the narrator murmurs, they built a geometry that still confounds our understanding. The tone is calm, unhurried, as if walking with invisible steps across the hot sand toward the base of the Great Pyramid. Every line of the narration breathes awe and quiet wonder rather than disbelief, a bedtime meditation on human ingenuity wrapped in mystery. The listener is invited to imagine the world, then, a civilization alive with ritual and rhythm. The Nile flowing nearby, the hum of voices chanting to gods, the sound of chisels meeting stone. Yet even as we understand their purpose, we cannot quite grasp their perfection. How did ancient builders align the Great Pyramid so precisely with the cardinal points of Earth? How did they lift and maneuver millions of blocks without the machinery we depend on today? Historians and engineers have offered theories. Ramps, levers, wooden sleds dragged over wet sand. But no theory fully satisfies the imagination. The narrator's voice dips lower, as if sharing a secret the desert still refuses to reveal. There are answers that fit the mind, they say, and answers that fit the soul. The pyramids belong to both. In this section, contrast becomes its guiding rhythm. Light against shadow, certainty against myth. The narrator describes the pyramid not only as an engineering marvel, but as a cosmic symbol. Its sides mirror the sun's journey. Its proportions echo mathematical constants that appear across nature. The ancient Egyptians did not separate science from spirituality. For them, the act of building was an act of devotion, a bridge between the mortal and the divine. Each block, the narrator reflects softly, was a prayer in stone. The music hums quietly beneath the words, slow and hypnotic, like the heartbeat of the desert itself. The narrative then turns to the deeper question, not how, but why. Why build such enormous monuments? Why labor for decades to raise a tomb of such impossible scale? The answer, perhaps, lies in humanity's oldest desire, the wish to endure. Pharaohs built to be remembered, but in doing so, they made something greater than themselves, a message to all who would come after. The pyramid, the narrator muses, is not just a tomb. It is a thought carved into the horizon, a declaration that life continues, that knowledge and mystery can stand side by side beneath the sun. The voice grows softer, slower, and the air feels heavier with time. The pyramids in this telling are not monuments of death, but of persistence, the stillness that watches as centuries pass like drifting clouds. The narration gently invites the listener to imagine walking through the inner chambers, the air cool and still, the walls close and resonant. The lantern light flickers over hieroglyphs, over the precision of stone blocks fit so tightly that no mortar binds them. Each chamber feels alive, humming faintly with memory. These passages, the narrator whispers, were not built for the living. Yet here we are, walking through the dreams of kings. The listener is meant to feel both the intimacy and the enormity of the moment, the human scale within the inhuman vastness, the contrast of breath against eternity. Outside, the wind continues its patient drift. The pyramids, glowing now in the full morning light, cast shadows that stretch across the desert. The narrator shifts tone slightly, connecting this moment to the mysteries explored earlier. The Antikythera mechanism, a mechanical wonder of precision and knowledge, and now, the pyramids, an architectural wonder of will and faith. Both challenge the notion of progress as linear. We think of the ancients as behind us, the voice says, almost wistfully, but perhaps they stand beside us, builders, dreamers, scientists of spirit. The calm repetition of sound, sand against stone, air against silence, creates a hypnotic rhythm that soothes even as it stirs wonder. As the section nears its close, the narration widens its lens. In the cool of evening, the voice murmurs, the pyramids catch the fading light, their surfaces glowing like embers. They have seen everything, the birth of language, the rise of empires, the quiet of night after endless day. Yet they remain unchanged. The words flow like poetry, not demanding belief, but offering stillness, a sense that the world's greatest mysteries do not require solving to be meaningful. The pyramids endure because they embody something timeless, humanity's longing to reach beyond its limits, to shape permanence from impermanence. The final image is serene. The stars rise again over Giza, aligning as they did thousands of years ago. The narrator's voice fades almost to a whisper. When you look at them, they say, You are not looking at the past. You're looking at the question that time itself keeps asking. How does the mortal hand create something eternal? The wind sighs across the sand, a soft lullaby of stone and silence. Slowly, the sound fades into the faint rush of waves, carrying the listener from desert to sea once more, a seamless transition to the next mystery that waits beneath the waters, the legend of a city that vanished into myth, Atlantis. The sea is endless tonight, dark, vast, and full of memory. Its waves roll with a rhythm older than language, whispering against the shores of every continent. Somewhere beneath these shifting depths, legend says, lies a city that defied the gods, a civilization that rose higher than any before it and vanished in a single night. The narrator's voice floats in softly, calm, and unhurried, as if carried on the tide itself. For centuries, they say, sailors have spoken of lights in the deep, of shapes beneath the surface, of the lost city of Atlantis. The tone is soothing but threaded with curiosity, that gentle balance between myth and reason that defines the documentary's spirit. The story begins not with certainty, but with imagination, a quiet invitation to drift between truth and dream. The narrative turns back to where the story first took shape, to the words of Plato, written more than 2,000 years ago. The philosopher described Atlantis as a vast island empire, rich in gold and wisdom, lying beyond the Pillars of Heracles, which we now know as the Strait of Gibraltar. It was said to be a land of extraordinary power, built by demigods descended from Poseidon himself. Its people grew proud and ambitious, expanding their reach until divine punishment struck. In a single day and night of misfortune, the island was swallowed by the sea. The narrator's voice moves softly through these ancient sentences, letting them breathe like poetry. Perhaps it was a parable, they muse. Perhaps it was a memory. But stories that endure for millennia often hold something more than invention. The sound of waves deepens, layered with the faint echo of temple bells and distant thunder. The narrator continues, guiding the listener through the evolution of the Atlantis mystery, how explorers, scholars, and dreamers across centuries have searched for the lost city's remains. Some claimed it lay beneath the sands of Egypt, others beneath the waters of the Mediterranean, and some even beneath the ice of Antarctica. The tone never rushes or judges. It simply drifts through possibility. Maybe Atlantis was not a place, the narrator suggests, but a reflection, a memory of many civilizations lost to time, their names forgotten, their stories folded into myth. For a moment, the story touches the surface of history. The narrator describes how entire cultures have vanished under waves and dust. The Minoans on Crete, destroyed by volcanic fire and flood. The city of Helike in Greece, swallowed by the sea in 373 BC. Even coastal temples of India that re-emerged after a modern tsunami. These are reminders that myths often grow from the soil of truth. The sea, the narrator murmurs, does not forget. It only hides. The balance between light and dark becomes more pronounced here. The scientific against the mystical, the seen against the submerged. The pacing slows, creating a tranquil sense of awe. The listener is invited to imagine Atlantis not as a single city, but as an echo of all humanity's forgotten chapters. The narrator speaks gently of how the legend has shaped art, philosophy, and exploration, inspiring voyages into uncharted waters, quests for meaning beyond the horizon. Every age, the voice continues, has looked into the ocean and seen its own reflection. Our lost dreams, our hidden fears, our longing to find what was once whole. The music beneath grows deep and resonant, like the slow pulse of the sea itself. The narration then shifts to the visual, a descent beneath the waves. We follow shafts of light cutting through turquoise water, revealing crumbled stones, coral-covered pillars, shapes that might be ruins or simply the imagination of the deep. Beneath us, the narrator whispers, time has no meaning. The ocean floor is a library without shelves, each grain of sand a word from a forgotten story. The tone is hypnotic, designed to quiet the mind while awakening wonder. The documentary does not claim discovery. It offers serenity in the not knowing. The voice returns to Plato, who claimed that the tale was passed to him from Egyptian priests, a memory preserved from a time when the gods still walked among mortals. The narrator reflects on this lineage of storytelling, how myth becomes history and history returns to myth. Perhaps, they muse softly, Atlantis is not beneath the waves, but within our collective memory, the dream of a perfect civilization that fell because it forgot the balance between knowledge and wisdom. There is no urgency here, no need for conclusion. The goal is peace through curiosity, the comfort of letting mystery remain a companion rather than a puzzle. Gradually, the narration draws connections, how the loss of Atlantis mirrors the rise and fall of every civilization. Greatness, no matter how dazzling, is temporary. Every empire, the voice says, is a sandcastle waiting for the tide. The sound of waves swells and recedes, creating a lullaby effect. The narrator reminds the listener that destruction and rebirth are part of the same eternal cycle. Atlantis, whether real or imagined, survives not in ruins, but in ideas, in a way humanity keeps looking for light beneath the surface. As the section draws to its end, the imagery softens. The listener can almost feel the ocean around them, quiet, weightless, infinite. The narrator's final words in this segment float like driftwood in the current. If Atlantis ever existed, they whisper, perhaps it was never lost. Perhaps it lives wherever curiosity endures, wherever human hands build, destroy, and build again. The sound of water fades into silence, leaving only a faint heartbeat, the rhythm of time continuing beneath the calm. Slowly, the tone changes, preparing the listener to leave the sea behind. Our next discovery, the narrator says gently, does not sleep beneath the waves but beneath the ice, a body frozen in time, waiting to tell its story. The final note dissolves into a breath of wind that feels colder now, sharper, carrying us northward toward the icy peaks of the Alps, where the next mystery, the Iceman, awaits in silence. High in the silent Alps, where the air grows thin and the snow never truly melts, a secret slept beneath the ice for 5,000 years. It was not gold or stone or a lost machine of the ancients. It was a person, a man who had walked these same mountains long before history had a name, his body sealed in ice like a message waiting for the right century to be read. The year was 1991 when two hikers, Helmut and Erica Simon, stumbled upon a dark shape half buried in the melting glacier near the Austrian-Italian border. At first, they thought it was the body of a lost mountaineer. But the truth, revealed slowly, patiently, was something far more profound. The narrator's voice comes in softly, almost reverently. From the frozen breath of time emerged a face from prehistory, a man who had waited 5 millennia to be found. The tone of a narration remains calm and meditative, yet beneath the tranquility there's a quiet awe. The listeners are invited to imagine the scene, the soft creak of ice, the whispering mountain wind, and the moment when human eyes met the past in its most intimate form. The body was remarkably preserved. Skin, hair, clothing, tools, all intact, sealed in nature's perfect preservation chamber. Scientists named him Otzi, after the Ötztal Alps where he was found. The narrator pauses, letting the name settle like a breath on cold glass. He was one of us, they say, and yet not us. A traveler from an age before cities, before kings. A messenger from the dawn of memory. As the story unfolds, the details of Otzi's discovery flow gently, each described with the rhythm of a heartbeat slowed by altitude. The archaeologist who studied him uncovered layer after layer of insight. The grass cloak he wore, woven with care. The copper axe he carried, the oldest of its kind ever found. The tattoos etched into his skin, perhaps for healing or ritual. Each object became a whisper of his world, a glimpse of what life was like 5,000 years ago. The narrator's tone is soft but steady, a calm balance of science and wonder. He was not buried with ceremony. They murmur, but the mountain became his tomb, the ice his guardian. And when the world was ready, it released him. The pacing slows as the narration dives deeper into the forensic story, told not with urgency, but with quiet fascination. CT scans revealed that Otzi had eaten a meal of grains and meat shortly before his death. Pollen analysis traced his journey through the valleys below, showing that he had climbed high into the mountains in early autumn. There was an arrowhead lodged in his shoulder and deep cuts on his hands, signs of struggle. He did not simply fall to the cold, the narrator says gently. He was hunted, wounded, and fled into the snow. The ice preserved not only his body, but his story, a final moment caught between life and legend. The music beneath grows faintly somber, echoing the sound of wind moving through stone peaks. The narrator invites the listener to imagine the loneliness of that moment. A man limping upward through the snow, the sky gray, the cold closing in. Yet even in his final hours, he carried tools, weapons, and fire-starting kits, symbols of resilience and purpose. He was not a victim of the mountain, the voice whispers. He was part of it. His life, his death, his preservation, all woven into the same rhythm that shapes every living thing. This thought lingers, wrapping the mystery in serenity rather than sorrow. Gradually, the narration turns from fact to reflection. When we look at Otzi, it continues, we are not just looking at a man. We are looking at time itself, a being caught in the stillness between eras. His blood once beat beneath the same sun that shines today. His eyes once saw the same stars. The music softens, and a faint heartbeat sound echoes, as if through layers of ice. The narration allows the listener to feel both closeness and distance, the paradox of touching something so ancient and yet so familiar. The calm tone makes the mystery feel intimate, a lullaby of science and humanity intertwined. The narrator describes the ongoing discoveries, traces of ancient moss found in his gut, suggesting he traveled long distances. The copper axe that proved advanced metallurgy existed earlier than once believed. Each revelation reframes our understanding of early civilization, showing that even in an age we call primitive, intelligence and craft flourished. The ice, the narrator reflects, does not preserve by chance. It chooses what to keep, what to return. And sometimes, it chooses a story that we need to hear. The pacing becomes slower, more meditative, as the focus shifts from the man to what he represents. Otzi is a bridge, the voice says softly. He connects the living with the long gone. He reminds us that every heartbeat, every step across the earth, leaves a trace, a mark that time may one day uncover. The calm repetition of words and rhythm invites the listener into stillness, a shared silence with the mountains. The faint sound of a distant avalanche rolls in the background, not as danger, but as nature's sigh. As the section draws to a close, the narration ties the personal and the universal together. He was one man, the narrator whispers, but within him lies the memory of all who walked before. His discovery was not an ending, but a conversation between the past and the present, between the known and the mysterious. The sound of snow falling fills the silence between sentences. The music becomes thin, crystalline, almost like breath. Finally, the narrator prepares the listener to leave the cold behind, though the chill of mystery remains. The mountain gave him back to us, the voice says, to remind us that the past never disappears. It only waits, in ice and sand and shadow, for us to listen. The last image is of the glacier glowing faintly under the moonlight, the wind carrying whispers of time down the slopes. Slowly, the sound of cold fades into a warmer breeze, and the narration transitions with ease. From the frozen heart of the Alps, we move now to the realm between worlds, to mysteries that challenge not the body, but the mind itself. The music deepens, preparing the listener for the next chapter. the unexplainable wonders that lie between fact and the unknowable. Night settles differently in ancient places. It feels thicker, almost aware. In these moments, when the mind drifts between waking and dream, the line between history and myth begins to blur. The narrator's voice enters softly, like the hush of air in a vast, silent temple. There are discoveries, they begin, that do not fit neatly into time or reason. Objects and monuments that seem to whisper from the edges of understanding. The music beneath is sparse, a gentle hum of strings and low tones, creating the feeling of floating in darkness. These are the enigmas that dwell between fact and the unknowable, where science ends and mystery begins. The tone is hushed yet magnetic, and the listener can almost feel themselves being led into a gallery of the strange. The first image is described slowly, the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513 by an Ottoman admiral. It shows parts of the world with uncanny accuracy, coastlines of South America, Africa, and even Antarctica beneath its ice. How? The narrator asks quietly. Could a map made centuries before modern exploration know the shape of lands that had not yet been discovered? The question hangs in the air like mist. The calm voice does not rush to answer. Perhaps, it suggests, knowledge is not always lost, but merely hidden, passed through whispers and fragments, waiting for the right hands to rediscover it. The narration flows seamlessly to another enigma, the Baghdad Battery, a small clay jar found near Baghdad in the 1930s. Within it lay a copper cylinder and an iron rod, components that, when filled with vinegar or wine, could produce a faint electrical current. Was this, the narrator muses, an ancient experiment in harnessing energy, a curiosity of ritual, or a glimpse into a forgotten science? The pacing remains slow, hypnotic. In every age, the voice continues, there are minds that reach forward, so far forward that we mistake them for myth. Soft choral notes rise, and the narrator leads the listener across continents to the Nazca Desert of Peru. There, enormous geoglyphs stretch across the earth, lines and shapes so vast they can only be fully seen from the sky. A hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, etched into the desert floor with mathematical precision. For whom? The narrator asks in a tone of gentle wonder. Were these messages written, the gods above, or the people yet to come? The soundscape swells briefly, a blend of wind and distant echoes, before falling again into a peaceful silence. Perhaps, the voice says, the Nazca understood something we have forgotten, that art and belief are ways of speaking to eternity. The narrative glides effortlessly from desert to stone, from the Nazca lines to the enigma of Puma Punku in Bolivia. The ruins lie high in the Andes, where enormous blocks of granite are cut and fitted with precision that modern tools would struggle to replicate. Their surfaces are smooth as glass, the narrator whispers, their corners carved in right angles so perfect they seem machined. The mystery is not forced. It is described like a lullaby. Were these the works of forgotten engineers, or simply the measure of ancient skill we no longer recognize? The calm tone leaves space for thought, not conclusion, the hallmark of a bedtime mystery. The section begins to interlace these discoveries with a reflective thread, guiding the listener deeper into contemplation. What connects these wonders? The narrator asks softly. A map that sees beyond its time, a vessel that hums with unseen energy, a desert that writes to the sky, and stones that defy the hand. The rhythm of the voice becomes almost poetic, each sentence flowing like water over smooth rock. They remind us that progress is not a straight path, but a circle. Knowledge rises, fades, and returns again. The listener feels the contrast, the known world bathed in the soft light of reason, and just beyond it, the vast shadow of the unknown. The sound of wind returns, a familiar motif, carrying us through millennia. The narrator invites us to imagine the people who made these things. They were not gods or aliens, the voice says gently. They were people, dreamers, thinkers, builders. Like us, They looked at the stars and wondered if someone was looking back. The calm empathy in the tone turns the distant past into something intimate. Perhaps their greatest invention was not the object itself, the narrator continues, but the mystery it left behind, the invitation to keep searching. A quiet shift in the music signals a change in mood. For all our science, the narrator says, there are still questions that lie beyond measurement, mysteries that refuse to sleep. This line lingers, wrapping the listener in stillness. Then comes an image, candlelight flickering across old scrolls, a scholar tracing ancient symbols that make no sense. Across every generation, there have been those who feel the pull of the unknown, the sense that history still hides its most delicate truths. The narration becomes slightly slower, more contemplative, the words stretching like shadows at dusk. The farther we reach into time, the voice whispers, the more it resists. It bends around us, revealing only what we are ready to see. The mysteries of the world are not portrayed as puzzles to be solved, but as conversations between eras. Each discovery becomes a message, a quiet reminder that humanity has always been more curious than certain. As the section nears its close, the narrator gathers all these threads, the maps, the stones, the symbols, into one soothing reflection. These artifacts are more than relics, they say softly. They are mirrors. In them, we see the echoes of our own questions about creation, purpose, and the vastness that surrounds us. The background sound fades until only a heartbeat-like pulse remains, steady and calm. Perhaps mystery is not an absence of truth, the voice concludes, but the shape truth takes when it wishes to be gentle. The sound of a soft breeze drifts in again, warmer this time, carrying the listener away from deserts and mountains. The narrator speaks one final line before the transition. If the earth hides secrets, so too does the sky. And sometimes, the most mysterious discoveries are not buried in stone or ice, but written among the stars. The last note of music lingers like starlight, preparing the listener to rise slowly from the ground into the next chapter, a journey into the celestial mysteries that have guided humanity since time began. The night sky has always been humanity's oldest map, infinite, quiet, and filled with questions. Long before there were cities or machines, people looked upward for meaning, tracing the slow dance of stars across the heavens. The narrator's voice returns, calm and deep, the sound wrapped in a blanket of distant wind and faint choral hums. For as long as we have breathed, they begin. We have measured our lives against the light of distant fires. And though we have learned to name the stars, their secrets remain beyond our reach. The listener is drawn gently into the cosmos, not through the language of science, but through the poetry of wonder. The pacing is slow, dreamlike, like drifting upward through endless dark. The story begins with the ancients, with those who first turned their eyes skyward and built the heavens into stone. In the desert of Egypt, the narrator says softly, the Great Pyramid aligns almost perfectly with the cardinal directions. And far to the west, in Mexico, the pyramids of Teotihuacan mirror the pattern of Orion's belt. The sound of a low drum echoes, like a heartbeat of the earth beneath the stars. From the Nile to the Andes, from Stonehenge to Angkor, humanity has always listened to the sky. The tone is reverent, not in the language of astonishment, but in the quiet acceptance that the universe has always been our oldest companion. We drift next to Stonehenge, the great circle of stones on the Salisbury Plain, standing in silence for thousands of years. Each stone, the narrator murmurs, is not random, but placed in perfect relation to the solstices, the longest and shortest days of the year. It is a clock made not to measure hours, but eternity. The listener imagines the early people gathered here, wrapped in furs, watching the first rays of summer sun pass precisely through the stone gates. They were not primitive, the voice continues gently. They were astronomers of spirit. The sky was their book, their teacher, their God. The calm tone and rhythmic pacing allow the mind to wander peacefully, the wonder of it soothing rather than startling. From the green fields of England, the narration moves softly eastward to the ancient city of Babylon. There, beneath the Mesopotamian sky, astronomer priests charted the movement of planets on clay tablets. They believed the heavens reflected the pulse of the divine. The narrator explains that the stars spoke in patterns only the patient could read. The faint sound of a reed flute joins the background, slow and haunting. Those patterns became prophecy, then became science. In time, what was sacred became measurable. Yet the mystery never left. A pause, then the voice grows even quieter. Even now, our modern instruments reach far beyond the edge of sight, but what they find is still mystery. The narration moves seamlessly into modern times. Telescopes peering into black holes, radio dishes listening for whispers from other worlds. We name the galaxies, the narrator says, but we do not know why they exist. We find order, and still the silence remains. This contrast between knowledge and humility keeps the tone grounded, soothing, reflective. It is not a story of discovery, but of acceptance that some beauty lies in the unanswered. The narrator gently reminds the listener that the mysteries of the sky have always shaped human life on Earth. Farmers once planted by the moon, they say, and sailors steered their ships by the stars. Lovers made promises beneath constellations that would outlive them all. The words move like poetry, each sentence slow and deliberate, meant to lull rather than excite. Even now, when city lights drown the heavens, we still look upward, searching for the same comfort, the same sense of belonging in something endless. The pacing deepens. The narration turns toward one of the great celestial enigmas, the star Sirius, known to the ancient Egyptians as Sopdet. It was said, the narrator explains softly, that when Sirius first appeared in the dawn sky, the Nile would soon flood, bringing life to the fields. The heavens and the earth moved in harmony. But centuries later, this same star became the subject of another mystery, the Dogon people of Mali in West Africa. Long before telescopes, the narrator says with hushed awe, the Dogon described Sirius not as one star, but two, a bright one and a smaller companion invisible to the naked eye. Modern science confirmed this centuries later. The voice lowers, almost a whisper now. How do they know? The question is not asked for drama, but for wonder. The narrator offers possibilities, oral traditions, observation, coincidence, yet leaves the mystery open, suspended in quiet fascination. Perhaps, they say gently, some knowledge travels through ways we do not yet understand, carried not in books, but in the soul of humanity itself. The sound of wind rises softly again, filled with the faint hum of a distant choir, evoking the idea of ancient voices carried through time. From the stars, the narration moves back down toward the earth, not in descent, but in reflection. For every mystery above, the narrator continues, there is one below. We have mapped the heavens more completely than the depths of our own oceans. The transition is smooth, poetic, as if the listener is floating between two mirrors, one reflecting the cosmos, the other the sea. The narrator's voice takes on a slightly warmer tone. The sky and the sea are twins, both vast, both unfathomable. Both keep their secrets in silence. The section becomes almost meditative now. The narrator speaks of time as a river that flows through both realms. The same stars that guided the builders of pyramids still watch over us tonight. They say softly. Their light has traveled for thousands of years to touch our eyes. Ancient light meeting fleeting life. The words stretch, linger, and dissolve, leaving behind a profound stillness. As the section nears its close, the focus turns inward. When we gaze at the night sky, the voice whispers, we are not looking out but back, through layers of time and memory. Each point of light is both history and prophecy, a reminder that everything we seek has already been seen. The music fades until only a single, steady note remains, calm, unbroken, like the hum of the universe itself. Perhaps the stars are not there to be understood, the narrator concludes softly, but to remind us of how small we are and how vast our capacity to wonder. The final image is gentle, the stars reflected in calm water, sky, and sea merging into one endless mirror. And just as the heavens hide their secrets above, the voice adds, the oceans below hold their own stories, cities drowned, ships lost, treasures swallowed by time. The sound of waves slowly replaces the hum of the stars, seamless and slow. Let us dive once more, the narrator says, beneath the surface, where another world waits in silence. The transition completes like a sigh, from starlight to the deep blue, from cosmic mystery to the forgotten ruins beneath the sea. The ocean, in the soft darkness of night, becomes a mirror of the cosmos, vast, silent, unknowable. Waves move like breathing, slow and rhythmic, as if the sea itself is alive and dreaming. The narrator's voice enters quietly, distant yet intimate, like a whisper carried through water. Beneath the surface, they say, lies another world, a world of lightless valleys and mountains taller than any on land, a world that has swallowed the remains of centuries. The soundscape deepens, gentle ripples, echoing sonar pulses and the soft murmur of currents. Here, history sleeps. Here, the mysteries of the deep wait for the curious and the patient. The pacing is slow, hypnotic, pulling the listener downward into the blue stillness. The narration begins with the oldest dream of the sea, the lost cities said to lie beneath its waves. Every ocean, the voice continues softly, has its own Atlantis, a tale of a place that once was, now hidden beneath the tides. We are guided gently to the coast of Japan, to the submerged ruins of Yonaguni. In the calm waters near Okinawa, divers discovered what seemed to be a massive stone structure, terraces, steps, and platforms rising from the ocean floor. Some believe, the narrator whispers, it is a city built long before recorded history, carved by hands that predate civilization itself. Others say it is nature, shaped by the patience of waves and time. The tone is even, never sensational, letting mystery breathe on its own. Perhaps it is both. The voice muses, the sea's way of reminding us that creation and erosion are one and the same. The narration drifts to another shore, the coast of India, where legends speak of an ancient city called Dwarka, home of Lord Krishna, said to have sunk beneath the sea after his passing. For centuries it was only myth, the narrator says softly, until divers in the Gulf of Kumbat found evidence of walls and streets, temples buried beneath silt and coral. The faint sound of temple bells fades into the rhythm of waves. Science calls it geology. Faith calls it memory. The truth may lie somewhere in the current between. As the story unfolds, the listener is taken on a gentle journey across oceans, from the Mediterranean, where the ancient city of Heracleon once stood near the Nile Delta, to the Caribbean, where rumors persist of stone roads beneath the waves near Bimini. Heracleon, the narrator says, was once a thriving port, a place where Greek and Egyptian gods met across cultures. Then, one day, the earth shook and the city sank beneath the water. For over 1,000 years, it slept in silence, until it was found again, its statues still standing, as if waiting to be remembered. The imagery is vivid yet peaceful, colossal figures resting among corals, sand drifting like time's slow breath. The pacing slows even further, as if descending deeper. The ocean, the narrator murmurs, is the planet's great library. Every wave that falls writes a new page, and every storm that passes turns one over. What we find beneath its surface is not just the past. It is a mirror of ourselves. The tone grows slightly more introspective, weaving in emotion without weight. For what is a sunken city, if not a reflection of our own impermanence? Every civilization rises like a tide, and one day, it too recedes. The narration gently shifts focus from myth to the poetry of discovery. The listener hears the faint echo of a sonar ping, followed by the calm voice. Even today, vast regions of the ocean floor remain unmapped. We have explored less of the sea than the surface of the moon. Somewhere down there, in the cold and the dark, lie secrets untouched by time. Shipwrecks, forgotten coastlines, entire chapters of human history. The tone is not fearful, but serene, a meditation on mystery rather than danger. In the quietest depths, the narrator continues. Light fades, sound bends, and memory lingers. The ocean does not lose what it takes. It keeps. There is a brief moment of wonder as the narration describes bioluminescent life. Tiny creatures glowing in the deep, painting the dark water with light. Perhaps, the narrator muses softly, the sea gives back what it takes in other forms, beauty from memory, light for loss. The contrast between darkness and illumination reflects the recurring rhythm of the documentary. Mystery as both shadow and comfort. The slow, continuous hum of the ocean becomes a kind of heartbeat, a steady lull for the listener's mind. The voice grows quieter still, leaning into reflection. When explorers dive into the depths, they're not just seeking ruins or relics, the narrator explains. They are listening to the hum of the earth, to the faint pulse of forgotten worlds. Every artifact pulled from the sea carries the silence of centuries. The tone carries both warmth and melancholy, like a lullaby woven from longing and peace. As the section moves toward its closing passage, the narration returns to the broader rhythm of human curiosity. We are drawn to the unknown not because we expect answers, the narrator says, but because the unknown makes us feel alive. To search the ocean floor is to face the vastness of time and to recognize, gently, how small and temporary we are. The music fades until only the sound of water remains. The voice becomes a whisper. The sea is not empty. It is full of everything we have forgotten. The closing image is tranquil. The surface of the ocean ripples under moonlight, waves folding over ruins invisible below. Beneath us, the narrator says, lies memory itself, vast, unbroken, waiting. The ocean keeps our secrets, and in return, it teaches us silence. The last notes of the score rise softly, resembling whale's song or wind underwater. And yet, the voice adds with quiet wonder, sometimes the sea gives something back, something it has kept safe for 1,000 years. The sound of waves fades, replaced by the faint crackle of fire and wind, the sound of desert sand. From the blue depths, the narrator continues, we return now to the sands of earth, to mysteries buried not by water, but by time and dust. The tone warms slightly, preparing the listener for the next discovery, one that lies beneath the desert sun, where relics of an ancient people wait beneath layers of forgotten earth. The desert at dusk is an ocean turned to gold, endless, silent, and shifting. Its dunes ripple like waves frozen in motion, their crests glowing in the last light of the sun. When night falls, the sand cools, and the stars take their place above, mirroring the grains below in their countless number. The narrator's voice enters softly, the sound low and calm, as if carried on the desert wind itself. If the ocean hides what it swallows, they say, then the desert buries what it remembers. Beneath these sands lie the bones of empires, the whispers of forgotten kings, and the traces of people who once called the impossible home. The music beneath is subtle, a slow, echoing blend of strings and distant drums, evoking the heartbeat of an ancient land. The narration begins in Egypt, where the desert has always been both a destroyer and a protector. Every grain of sand, the narrator murmurs, is a page of history. Together, they form a book that the wind is forever rewriting. The story unfolds with the rhythm of slow breathing, each sentence deliberate, soothing. The focus turns to one of the most mysterious archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, the Valley of the Golden Mummies, at Bahariya Oasis. In 1996, archaeologists uncovered hundreds of mummies buried beneath the desert floor. Their faces covered in delicate gold masks, their bodies adorned with fine linen and intricate jewelry. They lay there for nearly 2,000 years, the narrator says, watching the world pass in silence. And when the sand shifted, they returned, unbroken, serene, their golden faces shining softly in the sun once again. The tone remains tender, never morbid. Death was not an ending for them, the narrator continues, but a continuation, a journey through darkness into eternal light. The words roll like warm air, unhurried, contemplative. In their silence, we hear not tragedy, but faith. Faith in the cycle of return, in the idea that nothing, once created, truly disappears. The narration then moves beyond Egypt, across the deserts of the Middle East and North Africa, where sand has swallowed countless cities. The Sahara was not always dry, the narrator explains gently. Once it was green, alive with rivers, animals, and people. Beneath the dunes, archaeologists have found tools, bones, and cave paintings, evidence of an ancient world erased by shifting climate. The desert did not destroy them, the voice says softly. It simply covered them, like a mother laying a blanket over a sleeping child. The contrast between harshness and tenderness keeps the pacing calm, the mystery comforting rather than bleak. We move next to a discovery beneath the sands of Saudi Arabia, the lost city of Al-Ula, known to the ancients as Dedan. For centuries, the winds hid its walls, the narrator whispers. But now, its temples rise again, carved into cliffs of rose-colored stone. The imagery is vivid but slow, described like a dream unfolding. Its people are gone, their names forgotten, yet their craftsmanship remains, proof that beauty can outlast its maker. The background music deepens, resembling the sound of wind passing through hollow stone, blending the sense of past and present. The narration's rhythm shifts gently from description to reflection. The desert teaches patience, the voice says. It keeps its secrets until the world is ready to listen. It preserves through silence what oceans preserve through depth. A brief pause, the sound of sand brushing against rock, allows the listener to absorb the meaning. In the desert, time does not rush. It drifts. We are guided to another enigma, this one more recent. The discovery of the Nazca mummies in Peru, desert again, but of another kind. Their skin, their hair, even their fingerprints remain after thousands of years, the narrator explains softly. Some appear ordinary, others do not. The tone is careful, steady, never sensational. Scientists study them, skeptics debate them. But beyond argument lies something deeper, the reminder that humanity's story is still being written, and we are not its final chapter. The faint hum of desert wind grows stronger, merging with a slow drumbeat, grounding the listener in stillness. Then comes a moment of quiet contrast. Where the ocean hides movement, the narrator says the desert hides silence. Beneath its stillness, whole worlds sleep. When uncovered, they return not with fury, but with peace, as if simply waking from a long dream. The voice grows softer, almost meditative. Perhaps that is the nature of all mysteries, not to shock, but to remind us that the past never truly leaves. It only waits. The music fades to near silence as the narration reflects on the fragility of human legacy. We build monuments, the voice says slowly, believing they will last forever. But even stone wears away. Only the sand endures. It covers, it protects, and in time it reveals. The words flow like wind-blown dunes, smooth, cyclical, unhurried. The desert's power lies not in its emptiness, but in its patience. The focus then gently turns inward toward the philosophical. Perhaps we are all like those buried cities, the narrator muses. Parts of us hidden, forgotten, waiting for the right moment to be rediscovered. The archaeologists who brush sand from an ancient statue are not just uncovering history. They are practicing remembrance, the oldest act of love. The idea settles like twilight, quiet, luminous, enduring. As the section nears its close, the imagery grows wider, cosmic once again. At night, the voice says, the desert becomes a mirror for the sky. Every grain reflects a star. The same wind that shaped these dunes once touched the sails of pharaohs and whispered through the streets of lost cities. The tone invites reflection rather than conclusion. To walk through the desert, the narrator finishes softly, is to walk through time itself, and to listen, not with the ears, but with the soul. The sound of the desert fades gradually, replaced by something different, a low, rhythmic heartbeat, the sound of human footsteps. From the silence of the sands, the narrator says in closing, we now turn to the silence within the earth, to discoveries that lie not under open sky, but beneath stone, in the hidden corridors of the world below. The transition is smooth and dreamlike, leading the listener downward once more, toward the catacombs, caves, and forgotten tunnels that form the next chapter of humanity's sleeping mysteries. Beneath the earth, the world changes. The air becomes heavy, the light softens, and sound takes on a deeper tone, echoing through chambers that seem to breathe. The narrator's voice enters, a calm whisper, reverent and steady. Above, the winds shape the dunes. Below, time itself becomes still. There are places under our feet where history hides in perfect silence, where every stone remembers and every shadow holds a secret. The atmosphere shifts to one of hush awe. These are the hidden corridors of the world, catacombs, tombs, and caves that hold the echoes of forgotten prayers. The listener can almost hear the faint drip of water, the brush of air moving through old tunnels, the pulse of the earth itself. The narration begins in Egypt once again, not beneath the golden sands this time, but under the ancient city of Saqqara, where the discovery of a sealed tomb stunned the modern world. In 2020, the narrator says softly, archaeologists opened a chamber that had been untouched for over 2,500 years. Inside were dozens of coffins, perfectly preserved, their colors still bright, their inscriptions still legible. The tone remains gentle, reverent, and soothing. Imagine the moment of opening that door. The voice murmurs, air from the past rushing out into the present, a breath exhaled after centuries. The music deepens to a slow hum, echoing the heartbeat of the underground. From Egypt, the narrative flows smoothly to the labyrinthine catacombs of Rome. Far beneath the busy streets, the narrator continues, stretch miles of tunnels carved into soft rock, resting places for the earliest Christians who sought peace and secrecy in the depths. The description unfolds like a painting in candlelight. Here, the walls are covered in symbols, fish, doves, and anchors, quiet codes of faith written in the language of survival. The voice lowers, becoming almost a lullaby. To walk through these tunnels is to walk through whispers, the whispers of a people who believe that death was not darkness, but dawn. The story then travels to another continent, to the mysterious hypogeum of Hal Saflieni in Malta. Older than the pyramids, carved by hand from living stone, the narrator explains, this underground temple hums with a strange resonance. Its chambers were designed with perfect acoustics, capable of amplifying a single voice until it feels like the earth itself is speaking. The soundscape subtly reflects this, a low, resonant vibration beneath the words. No one knows exactly who built it or why. Was it a temple, a tomb, or something in between? Science offers theories. Silence offers peace. The narration pauses, letting the stillness carry its own meaning. As the story unfolds, the listener is guided into deeper, symbolic terrain. In every culture, the narrator says softly, we have dug into the ground not only to bury the dead, but to reach for something beyond life. These chambers are not just graves. They're messages carved into the bones of the earth. The music swells gently, the melody thin as candle smoke. What drives us to build below the surface, the narrator asks. Perhaps it is an instinct, to protect what is precious, to hide what is sacred, to keep safe what must endure. The narration drifts next to Cappadocia, in modern-day Turkey, a landscape of stone cities beneath the ground. Here, the voice says, lies Darinka, an underground metropolis large enough to hold 20,000 people, complete with homes, wells, and ventilation shafts. Entire communities once lived here, hidden from war and invasion. The tone is one of gentle wonder. To stand inside its tunnels is to feel the breath of generations, to realize that beneath the calm earth lies a whole world carved by human hands, patient and enduring. The pacing is deliberate, immersive, wrapping the listener in the vastness of time. A faint sound of echoing footsteps blends into the narration. Every tunnel tells a story. The voice continues, of refuge, faith, or fear. But beneath all of them lies a shared truth, the longing to be remembered. The narrator pauses, allowing the listener to imagine candlelight flickering against ancient walls. Down here, sound travels slowly. A whisper can live for minutes, bouncing from stone to stone. It's as if the earth itself listens. The tone shifts gently from history to introspection. There is something deeply human about the act of descending, the narrator muses. To go beneath the surface, whether into the ground or into memory, is to search for meaning. The deeper we go, the closer we come to the heart of mystery itself. The voice softens, carrying both comfort and curiosity. The ancients understood this. They entered the earth not only to bury, but to awaken, to remind themselves that the end is always also a beginning. A subtle sense of wonder fills the next moments as the narration describes other hidden places. The catacombs of Paris, where walls of skulls stretch endlessly. The long-forgotten salt mines of Poland, carved into vast underground chapels of glittering stone, and the shadowed caves of Qumran, where the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. Each of these, the narrator says gently, is a message across time, a voice that refused to fade. Even in darkness, knowledge survived. Then, with deliberate calm, the narration draws a contrast between what is buried and what is revealed. The underground world reminds us that mystery does not only lie above, in stars and clouds, but also below, in the quiet heart of the earth. It is a place where the living and the dead share space, where history whispers softly, waiting for those who listen. The sound of dripping water echoes again, a natural heartbeat beneath the surface. The voice grows contemplative as the section approaches its close. Perhaps these chambers, these tombs, these caves are not just places of the past, the narrator suggests. Perhaps they are mirrors of the soul, showing us that within each of us, too, there are corridors we have not yet explored, memories sealed behind doors we have not yet opened. The tone is serene, almost meditative. And maybe, like the archaeologists with their lanterns, we too are searching through our own inner catacombs, uncovering, layer by layer, the stories we have buried. The closing lines emerge with warmth and peace. When we walk back toward the light, the narrator whispers, "We do not leave the darkness behind. We carry its lessons with us, the patience of stone, the quiet of time, the beauty of what endures." The faint sound of footsteps grows lighter, ascending, until air returns and daylight filters in. From the hidden corridors of the earth, the voice continues softly. We now rise again, not to the stars yet, but to the edges of civilization, where stone meets sky, and mysteries are written not in darkness, but in light. The final notes are calm and echoing, like wind through a distant cave. The transition is seamless, a gentle movement from the quiet weight of underground secrets to the open expanse of ancient monuments above ground, preparing the listener for the next unfolding mystery waiting beneath the morning sun. The world above the earth is full of reminders that humanity has always reached for the sky. Across continents, ancient hands shaped mountains into temples, carved gods into stone, and lifted impossible monuments toward the heavens. Yet, Even after centuries of study, many of these structures still whisper more questions than answers. The narrator's voice enters softly, almost reverently, the tones slow and steady like the rhythm of breathing. There are places, they say, where the line between human effort and divine mystery blurs, where we stand before the impossible and can only wonder who built them and why. The faint sound of wind sweeps across open plains, a low hum of distant echoes rising beneath it. These monuments are not just stone. They're messages left for us by time itself. The narration begins with the timeless enigma of Stonehenge. On a quiet plain in England, the narrator continues, a ring of massive stones stands against the horizon. Each one weighs more than a car, some as heavy as a small house. Yet they were placed there 5,000 years ago, aligned perfectly with the movements of the sun. The tone is not factual, but meditative. Every midsummer's dawn, the light touches a single stone at a perfect angle. It is as though the builders were speaking to the cosmos itself, using stone as their language. A brief pause follows, filled by soft birdsong and the faint rustle of grass. We do not know who they were. We do not know how they moved those stones. What we do know is that they wanted to be remembered, not through words, but through wonder. The story shifts gently, the wind carrying the listener across oceans to the high plains of Peru, where the Nazca lines stretch endlessly across the desert floor. From the ground, the narrator says, they're only scratches, shallow grooves cut into the earth. But from the sky, they become immense shapes, birds, serpents, flowers, and beings no one can name. The voice lowers, becoming almost a whisper. The Nazca people had no airplanes, no way to see their own creations from above. So who were these images for? The gods? The stars? Or perhaps simply time itself? The pacing slows, letting the mystery linger. The desert has guarded their purpose for nearly 2,000 years, holding the answer in silence. Then the voice deepens, carrying us to the great pyramids of Egypt once more. Not for their grandeur, but for their precision. The stones of Giza, the narrator explains softly, fit so perfectly that a blade cannot slip between them. Each side of the Great Pyramid is aligned almost exactly with the 4 cardinal points: north, south, east, and west. Such perfection still challenges us today. The music hums with a subtle, reverent tone, blending the feeling of awe with the calm of reflection. We call them tombs, but perhaps they were more than that. Perhaps they were compasses, monuments that pointed not only to heaven, but to eternity. The narrative then takes a gentle turn toward the east, to Cambodia, where the vast temples of Angkor what sleep beneath vines and sky. Built to honor the gods, the narrator murmurs, Angkor what mirrors the cosmos. Its towers rise like mountains, its corridors form a calendar, and its stones are covered with stories carved in relief. The faint sound of jungle birds and distant rain layers beneath the narration. For centuries, the jungle reclaimed it, roots curling around walls like hands. Yet when it was rediscovered, it stood almost whole, a city of stone wrapped in green silence. The tone becomes almost dreamy. Some say the gods themselves protected it. Others say it is proof that devotion can outlast decay. From Cambodia, the narration carries us to Easter Island, Rapa Nui, where the Moai statues stand like guardians staring across the Pacific. Their faces are solemn, their eyes once filled with coral and red stone. The voice says quietly. They watch the horizon, each one carved from volcanic rock, and moved miles across the island without wheels or beasts of burden. A pause. No one knows exactly how the islanders did it. Some say they walked the statues, rocking them forward like giants come alive. Others believe it was a feat of balance, patience, and faith. The soft sound of ocean wind fills the background. Whatever the truth, their gaze endures, timeless, unwavering, serene. The tone grows slightly more introspective, connecting the monuments across continents into one silent conversation. From England to Peru, From Egypt to Rapa Nui, every civilization has left its mark, vast, immovable, and mysterious. They built not only for themselves, but for those yet to come. For us. The narrator's voice lowers, inviting reflection. It is as if they knew we would forget, and so they carved their memories in stone, so that even when words faded, their stories would remain. The narration then moves gently into speculation, not of aliens or the fantastical, but of human wonder. It is tempting, the narrator says softly, to seek extraordinary explanations, to imagine hands beyond our own shaping these wonders. But perhaps the greater mystery lies within us. For what is more extraordinary than human imagination, or the desire to touch eternity? The music swells slightly, like sunlight spilling across ancient walls. The unknown does not always demand an answer. Sometimes it asks only for stillness, for us to stand and listen to what time has left behind. The story drifts next to the mountains of Bolivia, where the ruins of Puma Punku lie scattered like pieces of a puzzle. The stones here, the narrator explains, are cut with such precision that they seem machine-made. Their edges sharp, their angles perfect, their surfaces smooth as glass. Yet they are thousands of years old. A faint wind passes, followed by a soft exhale. How were they shaped? And why does their design resemble nothing else from their time? The questions remain, echoing across the centuries like footsteps in an empty hall. The pacing slows further, transitioning from the wonder of physical monuments to their spiritual weight. Perhaps, the narrator muses, these structures were never meant to be fully understood. Perhaps their builders knew that mystery itself was sacred, that to leave something unexplained is to give the future a gift of curiosity. The words drift gently, each one falling like dust from ancient stone. We, the watchers, the wanderers, continue to look up at these creations and feel something stir within us, something older than thought, something that whispers, "Remember." The tone becomes quieter, like the last light before dusk. These monuments do not shout their meaning, the narrator says. They hum with it, low and steady, like a heartbeat beneath the earth. They remind us that the human spirit, across all time, has sought connection with the stars, with the divine, and with the endless unknown. The voice fades almost to a whisper, and perhaps that is what they truly are, not tombs or temples, but bridges between worlds. As the section nears its close, the narration grows reflective and warm. Each stone, each carving, each alignment of sun and shadow is part of a conversation between past and present, earth and sky, the seen and the unseen. The music softens into a slow, resonant note, lingering in the air. When we stand before these ancient wonders, we are not just looking back. We are listening forward to the quiet voice of time itself. The transition to the next section begins with the faint sound of crackling fire and soft night wind. But for every monument that stands in light, the narrator says gently, there are others hidden in shadow, artifacts so strange, so singular, that they defy all reason. To find them is to stand at the edge of the known world and look beyond. The tone deepens slightly, mysterious yet calm. Let us go there now, into the realm of relics that do not fit, discoveries that question everything we think we know. The sound fades, leaving only stillness, the perfect quiet before another mystery begins. In every age, there have been discoveries that simply do not belong, artifacts that refuse to fit neatly into history's timeline, objects that seem to whisper from a world beyond the one we know. The narrator's voice enters like a shadow moving through candlelight, low, steady, and curious, but never hurried. Some finds, the voice says softly, are too strange to explain. They appear without context, without lineage, silent messengers from an age that perhaps never should have existed. They unsettle not through fear, but through wonder. They remind us that our understanding of the past is still only a fragile sketch drawn on the vast canvas of time. The faint sound of wind hums in the background, blending with a slow, pulsing tone, like a heartbeat beneath layers of dust. The story begins with a simple object that has baffled researchers for decades: the Antikythera mechanism. Found in 1901 off the coast of a Greek island, the narrator continues softly. It lay hidden inside a shipwreck for over 2,000 years. At first glance, it seemed nothing more than a lump of corroded bronze. But when the layers were peeled away, something extraordinary was revealed: a complex arrangement of gears, cogs, and inscriptions capable of predicting the motions of the stars and the cycles of the moon. A pause, the sound of turning metal faintly echoing. It is, in essence, an ancient computer built long before the world had words for such a thing. The tone becomes hushed, reverent. How did it come to exist? Who made it? Was it the work of a forgotten genius, or part of knowledge we have since lost? The mystery is left to rest in silence, like the sea that once hid it. From the calm waters of Greece, the narration flows to the deserts of Iraq, where another anomaly once sparked wonder: the Baghdad Battery. In the 1930s, the narrator explains, archaeologists unearthed clay jars with copper cylinders and iron rods sealed inside. Some scientists suggested that, when filled with acid or vinegar, they could produce a small electric current. If true, this would mean that ancient civilizations harnessed electricity nearly 2,000 years before its rediscovery. The voice lowers, contemplative, yet no one knows their true purpose. Were they devices for power? Religious relics? Tools of forgotten science? The sands offer no answer, only the same patient silence they always have. The pace slows, allowing the listener's imagination to wander. There are other discoveries, the voice continues, that challenge not just our understanding of technology, but of humanity itself. The soundscape shifts slightly, introducing a faint hum, like energy beneath stone. In 1938, near the border of China and Tibet, a series of small stone discs was found, etched with spiraling grooves and strange symbols. Some claimed they told the story of visitors from the sky. Others dismissed them as myths. The truth remains uncertain. But the stones exist, and their message, whatever it was, has faded into time's long breath. The narration drifts toward a deeper tone, gentle but layered with intrigue. In Siberia, giant metal spheres have been discovered buried in remote swamps. In South America, carvings depict beings wearing what look like helmets or suits. In India, ancient temples describe flying chariots powered by sound and light. Perhaps these are only myths, the narrator says softly. Or perhaps myths are the memory of something real, something long forgotten. The words linger, balanced between wonder and restraint. Every civilization has left stories of gods descending from the stars, of knowledge granted, then lost. Whether metaphor or memory, their persistence across cultures is its own kind of truth. The background hum grows subtler, replaced by the soft rustle of parchment, the faint scratch of quills. Some mysteries, the voice continues, are not made of metal or stone, but of words. The narrator describes the Voynich manuscript, a centuries-old book filled with indecipherable text and impossible illustrations. Its pages bloom with plants that do not exist, constellations unknown to our skies, and a language no one has ever spoken. Cryptographers, scholars, and dreamers have tried to unlock its code for over 600 years. None have succeeded. A pause follows, long and quiet. Perhaps it was never meant to be read. Perhaps it was written for someone who no longer exists, or for a world that no longer does. The narration turns contemplative, connecting these scattered enigmas through a shared thread of human curiosity. What binds all these discoveries, the narrator muses, is not certainty, but absence. The gaps in our knowledge that hum like an empty chord. We spend lifetimes trying to fill them, to make sense of what resists understanding. But maybe, just maybe, mystery itself is the message. The tone is serene, the music low and luminous, like moonlight through water. Perhaps these out-of-place artifacts are not errors in history, but reminders that history itself is incomplete. They whisper to us, "There's more." Then, with gentle rhythm, the voice describes a few quieter mysteries. The crystal skulls of Central America, carved with eerie precision from single blocks of quartz. The London hammer, a tool encased in rock far older than humankind. And the Pyrie Reis map, drawn in 1513, depicting Antarctica centuries before it was officially discovered. Each of these objects, the narrator says, has been tested, doubted, debated, and yet none are fully explained. They live in a narrow space between science and story, too real to dismiss, too strange to fully accept. The pacing slows again, softening into reflection. When we look at these artifacts, we're looking into mirrors of time, glimpses of brilliance, accidents, or something more. They remind us that progress is not always linear. Knowledge can rise, fall, and vanish, leaving only fragments behind. The voice grows quieter, tender. Perhaps there were civilizations before ours that reached heights we cannot yet imagine, their wisdom erased by fire, flood, or forgetfulness. Perhaps not. But to imagine it is to feel humility before time's vast horizon. The tone becomes even more peaceful now, the music fading into a single sustained note. And so we listen, the narrator says softly, to the silence of the unexplained. We trace the edges of these puzzles, not to solve them, but to remember that wonder is its own kind of knowledge. A faint sound of waves returns, blending sea and wind, as if to tie together all the mysteries, the ocean's depths, the desert's secrets, the underground tombs, and now these impossible relics, into one endless continuum. The world is full of questions we are not meant to answer, the voice murmurs. Their purpose is not clarity, but curiosity. They remind us that the unknown is sacred. As the section nears its end, the narration begins to rise, preparing the listener for the calm reflection that will follow. From the sea to the sands, from the hidden corridors to the skies, we have followed humanity's footprints through shadow and light, the narrator says. Each discovery, each mystery, has brought us closer not to certainty, but to wonder. The final notes drift like smoke. But now, as the night deepens and the journey nears its quiet end, we must pause, not to uncover, but to breathe, to look back at all we have seen, and to let the questions rest. The last sound is the soft sigh of the wind, as if the world itself exhales. The mystery endures, the narrator whispers. And that is enough. A few gentle piano notes fade into silence. Then, after a moment's stillness, the voice returns, quieter than before, filled with warmth. Let us close our eyes now, it says, and drift into the calm beyond curiosity, where mystery becomes peace. The transition is seamless, guiding the listener into the final chapter, where all of history's unanswered questions dissolve softly into reflection and rest. The night deepens, and the soft hush of the world settles like a blanket over every thought. The narrator's voice returns, gentle and low, carrying a warmth that draws the listener inward. We have traveled through deserts, oceans, catacombs, and stars, they say softly. We have seen monuments rise from stone, maps carved by hands long gone, and artifacts that defy reason itself. Every step of this journey has whispered the same truth. History is alive, and mystery is its companion. The soundscape is calm, soft strings, a distant wind, and the occasional faint echo of water, creating the sensation of floating between time and memory. The narration begins with reflection, gathering the threads of the stories we have followed. From the sands of Egypt to the depths of the ocean, from the silent catacombs to the monuments reaching toward the sky, we have walked among the echoes of those who came before us. They left traces not merely to be discovered, but to be felt. Every stone, every map, every artifact carries a heartbeat, a memory of a hand that shaped it, and a mind that imagined it. The tone is calm, unhurried, allowing the listener to feel both awe and comfort in the continuity of human curiosity. The narrator invites contemplation on the contrast between what is known and what remains hidden. Some discoveries answer questions we did not know we had. Others deepen the silence, leaving more to wonder at than we can comprehend. And yet, both are necessary. For it is in the interplay of knowing and not knowing that we truly understand the vastness of our story. The background sound swells subtly, a gentle blend of wind and distant chimes, reinforcing the sense of a timeless, breathing world. The narration drifts to a quiet meditation on time itself. History is not a straight line, the narrator murmurs. It is a river that curves and folds, sometimes visible, sometimes hidden beneath layers of sand, stone, and water. The civilizations we study, the artifacts we uncover, the maps and ruins we gaze upon, they're all glimpses of this river, fragments of a flow far greater than ourselves. The words are slow, deliberate, carrying the listener along with them, like drifting downstream in a calm current of thought. The voice softens, turning inward, reflecting on the human element woven through every mystery. And perhaps what is most remarkable is not the artifacts themselves, but the people who created them. Their hopes, their fears, their ingenuity, all of it survives in fragments, waiting for us to listen. Across millennia, humanity has reached for the unknown, and in doing so, has left us a trail of wonder. A faint echo of footsteps joins the wind, the sound subtle, grounding, and rhythmic, reminding the listener of the intimate connection between past and present. The narration then emphasizes the gentle lesson of these discoveries. To explore history is not merely to catalog facts, but to open ourselves to the quiet poetry of time. Every mystery invites patience. Every enigma encourages reflection. The unknown is not to be conquered, but to be experienced, like the slow unfolding of a dream that leaves its impression long after it has passed. The background music drifts like a river of calm light, soft piano notes mingling with airy choral tones, emphasizing tranquility. The voice gradually draws together the theme of light and shadow, known and unknown. We have seen what survives the ages: monuments, manuscripts, maps, and machines. We have also glimpsed what time has hidden, secrets buried in sand, stone, and silence. And in the space between these extremes lies the essence of wonder, the quiet hum that accompanies discovery, the pause that makes every revelation profound. The tone remains soothing, lulling the listener into a reflective state, comfortable with the unknown rather than anxious about it. The narration moves toward a gentle, philosophical reflection. Perhaps all mysteries are gifts, the narrator says softly, not because they frustrate or confuse, but because they remind us of the vastness that surrounds us, both within and without. To wonder is to be fully human. To accept uncertainty is to touch something eternal. The artifacts, the monuments, the ancient maps, they are guides, not answers. They teach patience, humility, and reverence. The music softens further, leaving just a calm, sustained hum like wind over an empty plain. The voice begins to ease the listener toward rest. Now, after our journey across time and space, we can let the questions linger gently in our minds, like stars reflected on still water. We do not need to solve them tonight. Their beauty lies in their mystery, in the way they invite us to dream, to imagine, and to feel connected across centuries and continents. The pacing is slow, measured, each word falling softly, like grains of sand settling after a wind. The narrator offers one final reflection on humanity's enduring curiosity. We are all part of this ongoing story. The hands that carved stone, drew maps, built monuments, or simply whispered into the dark. They are us and we are them. Time folds around us in quiet spirals, and in those spirals, wonder persists. A faint rustle of leaves and distant bird calls enter, evoking the transition from night to early dawn, calm and untroubled. The final lines bring the journey full circle back to quiet contemplation. As we rest now, Let us carry with us the knowledge that the world is vast and history is alive. Mystery is not an absence, but a presence, a gentle companion that invites us to pause, to reflect, and to dream. The music fades to a single, resonant note, lingering in the air. And in that dreaming, we are never alone. The past whispers to us softly, and in listening, we find peace. The last sounds are of soft wind and distant chimes, leaving the listener in calm reflection, perfectly suited for rest. The narrator's voice, now almost a whisper, says, "Sleep, and let the mysteries of time cradle you." For every question unanswered, every secret hidden, is a gift for the mind to wander and for the soul to rest. Silence follows, deep and complete, carrying the listener gently into the quiet embrace of sleep.